Hello from Canada Insurance Services. This is Jim Mackerline, Business Development Director. We're bringing back our 5 Questions With series. Today's episode is with Brian Wilton, Executive Underwriter with Hudson Pro. Brian, welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
We're going to ask a couple of questions about yourself, Hudson Pro, and D&O Insurance, which is ultimately the prize at the end of the Cracker Jack box here, as Canada is entering into a relationship with Hudson Pro and pursuing D&O coverage across our cannabis space. So, Brian, let's jump into it.
Sure.
What's the most understood or misunderstood issue on the coverage provided under a D&O policy?
I wouldn't really say it's a misunderstood issue on the coverage. I think it's more of a company not realizing the true value of a D&O policy. For instance, if a company doesn't have a strong balance sheet and the state they operate in has either mandatory and or permissive indemnification, then the company's on the hook to indemnify a director or officer for costs and expenses, incurred in the defense of a director or officer for an alleged wrongful act. The indemnification takes up balance sheet resources and it could potentially bankrupt a company, or at least put them in a less of a position they were in before the litigation.
Ouch. Hey, I've heard a little bit about some of the interesting coverages underneath D&O. Can you tell us what regulatory coverage is?
Sure. That's a pretty important coverage, especially in the cannabis space. And essentially, it's insurance coverage for regulatory or criminal proceedings brought by a regulatory agency, such as the FDA is one, the FD&C is one, and those individual agencies pretty much track the accuracy of CBD content on product labels. Another regulatory agency would be the SEC. They do enforcement on securities fraud, insider trading, accounting, etc. You've got the EPA for environmental issues, IRS for taxes, and a more recent hot topic is the Federal Trade Commission and the FDA being involved in misleading health claims. Both these agencies jointly issued warning letters to, I think it was 7 companies that were marketing CBD products with COVID-related claims, stating that their products either cured, mitigated, treated, or prevented COVID-19. And under the FDA, the federal drug, FD&C, the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, products that are intended to cure, treat, mitigate, or prevent disease are considered drugs, and that they're subject to the requirements that apply to drugs. So therefore, the agencies classified those products that were sort of misleading as unapproved and misbranded drugs. So there are a few companies that are getting their hands slapped for that.
Oh, I bet. And interestingly, it sounds like it almost ties in a little bit with product liability, which is a whole different conversation. But let's talk more a bit about Hudson. Tell us how long Hudson's been pursuing D&O coverage in the marketplace.
Sure. It started back in the early 2000s when a company called Hughes was essentially an MGA, and they wrote on behalf of our parent company, Odyssey and Hudson. And then eventually in 2008 or so, Hughes was integrated into Odyssey. And then they created the Hudson Financial Products Group, and that's when that was created back in 2008. And most recently, we went through a rebranding campaign, and we are now called Hudson Pro.
Gotcha. So lots of experience there. How did Hudson see the need to jump into D&O and specifically cannabis?
Yeah, I mean, with regards specifically to cannabis D&O, historically, D&O offerings for this space were very limited. It was either a bare bones policy that's super cheap, but not real coverage, or there was adequate coverage, but it was very cost prohibitive. We felt that there was a need for something sort of in between, where you get a good cannabis branded form, not a private company form with cannabis endorsements or heavy exclusions, or even on a public form that is used for private companies, and you're paying a lot of money for that. We understand that our insureds have a specific D&O need throughout their life cycle, whether you're a single dispensary, applying for your first license, or going through your first capital raise, or even an MSO with $1 billion plus revenues. We have 4 different D&O policies to essentially grow with our insureds. And like I said, we have a cannabis branded form that is specific to the cannabis industry. And we feel that our policies will help our cannabis partners get meaningful coverage. This is an industry that isn't going away and will only get bigger. So our plan is to be a partner with our insureds and help them navigate this ever evolving industry.
Clearly, we can see the expertise coming from Hudson Pro and yourself. Can you tell us how you got involved with D&O underwriting?
Sure. I was sort of, one of the insurance nerds. I majored in risk management and insurance at the University of Georgia. I did an internship back in Atlanta for a major carrier the summer before my senior year, and I was actually underwriting D&O. I think the opportunity to sit in front of executives and hear from them the things they've done to make a company successful is something that not a lot of people get the opportunity to do with their job. And so over the past 20 years, I've enjoyed underwriting because every day seems to be different. I like the research part of underwriting, the financial analysis part of underwriting, the relationship building with brokers and our insureds. We have to keep up with current events, current trends within the U.S. economy, even the global economy, legal changes within the industries we insure, and you really have to really enjoy learning and being challenged. And that's why I enjoy what I do.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate the expertise you're bringing forward, your industry compassion and passion, and look forward to doing a lot more business with you. We'll definitely share all of the Hudson Pro marketing literature and bring that conversation across the country with the agents that support Canasure. And we look forward to doing a lot more business with yourself, Brian. Thanks so much for the time today.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Take care.